Good morning. Early morning to y'all. Not too early, but pretty early. How are you guys doing? As you are jumping on, good morning, all around. Let's see. My Instagram just died, so they're probably like, what just happened there? So we'll jump back on Instagram in a minute. Good to see all of you guys. Yay, good morning. We're going to be talking about a fun topic. I used to teach on marriage and singleness and all of that so much early years of my business that people started calling me the love doctor. And over the years, the business and everything just kind of has grown and gone in a different direction. In addition, there's so many people teaching on this topic that I always feel like if there's an industry or an area that is getting too full, I just kind of pull out. But I do want to talk about marriage. I want to talk about love. I want to talk about courtship. I want to talk about preparation. So what I'm going to do today, not just preparation, but how to sustain healthy marriage. Obviously, I've only been married 8 years, but I've been coaching and consulting and advising married couples for almost 15 years. People would come to me even before I was married, and I would be doing marriage seminars and all of that. And that it has to do with spiritual wisdom. It also has to do with my background in terms of my training, and it's such a joy. It's something that I'm really, really passionate about. So what we're going to do is today we're going to talk about two different sections in two different ways. So the first thing I want to talk about is how to prepare spiritually and emotionally for marriage, and then how to sustain your marriage spiritually and emotionally. That I want to kind of hit both of those areas because a lot of married people feel like there's a lot of teaching on marriage preparation, but there's not a lot of teaching on marriage. Oh, Pastor Sosa's not doing this with me. He was in my picture because we're married, but he's downstairs with the kids. Someone's asking, where's Pastor Sosa? He's downstairs with the children. So um I'm going to be talking about how to sustain it and how to build within your marriage. So it's going to be on both of those angles. I think that it's really, really important to not only prepare to have a good marriage, but to maintain a good marriage and to grow in success even in your marriage. So once again, it's going to be coming from a spiritual perspective, and then from my years of counseling couples through, coaching, spiritual development, and all of that in the church. So let's go for it. The preparation, I'm not going to go into courtship a lot. I have a whole book on this stuff. But the three things that I feel like have been a repetitive factor, especially even after people are married, that gives me a clue that they weren't really prepared to be married is one, a lack of understanding of how to effectively communicate their needs, their wants, their desires, and what is going on internally. If you have a hard time communicating when things are not going well, or even if you can communicate it, but you get angry easily, you yell, you withdraw, you shut down. If that is happening prior to getting married, it's not necessarily going to change when you get married. As a matter of fact, it may even get worse when you get married, and the married people here can probably attest. And so it is really, really important that when you're preparing to get married, and I'm going to talk about what to do in marriage if you're already at this place, that you learn your communication style. One of the things that I teach on and I talk a lot about is the difference between someone who is an internal processor, meaning that they have to think through things first, and then they are able to communicate what is going on, and then an external processor, someone who has to talk about it right away so that they can feel better and they move on. So this is not just for singles, this is for married people as well. So Someone's asking, so what you have to be aware of is, how do I communicate? Do I need time to think about things? Do I shut down first? And what I've seen a lot of marriages when we do counseling in church and all of that is that a lot of times the issue is that they are just not understanding how the other person communicates. One person may want to talk about it right away, and the other person may need a break. They may need time to reflect. And what happens is the person who wants to talk about it right away gets angry because the other person doesn't want to talk about it right away. And then the one who doesn't want to talk about it right away gets frustrated because the one who does is always pulling and pushing. And so it is important, not only before you get married, but while you are married, that you begin to understand how you communicate. Then you also understand your like your filters. A lot of how we communicate is based on how we were raised, is based on our family background. And so maybe shutting down worked in your family, but that doesn't mean that's going to work in your family. Maybe yelling and talking through everything all the time, because that's not good all the time either. I used to tell wives, like, you don't have to talk about everything. Like, if you forgot to take out the trash that morning, that's not something to have a conversation about. You've got to have an understanding about what is important in your marriage. We used to do a whole wife camp, and I loved it. It's just a matter of time. I'll see if I can, I don't know, maybe next year do it again. But in it, and the husbands did a husband huddle, but in it, you've got to understand not everything requires processing. So there's some people, especially women, who we want to talk through everything. We want to process everything. And men do not have that space in their head. There's a statistics, something like women use 3,500 words a day. Men use like 1,500 words a day. So over communicating, talking too much could also be draining, not only just for men, but even for people who are more internal, who will think about something and solve the problem and move on. So you got to figure out what battles, you got to figure out how much, what you need to talk about. And this is the clue that I give couples, that if you something happened and you forget about it by the afternoon, then it's not something to try and remember to talk about. But if something has happened and for 2-3 days you keep thinking about it, you keep ruminating, you need to remember that you need to talk about it. Just be there and say, okay, this is something that I need to bring up. So that is one. And I've given a lot of different things. Figure out, am I internal? Am I external? Figure out, where have I learned healthy communication from my family? Where is it unhealthy? 2, am I someone who needs time to reflect and then talk about it? And 3, well, I don't even, I'm counting all wrong. 4, I think. You need to be aware that everything does not need to discuss. So before marriage, during marriage, figure out your communication styles. This is another thing. A lot of us are very emotional. So as soon as we feel something, we feel like we have to talk about it right away. But just because you feel it doesn't mean it requires a discussion, right? So just because I am feeling really angry doesn't mean I need to talk about it right away, because sometimes the environment is not right for a conversation. Someone may be busy, someone may be with the kids. And so you have to be able to have a level of self-control and a level of an ability to wait to discuss it when it is the right time, because it could be the right conversation at the wrong time, and then it bears no fruit. So the right conversation at the wrong time can bear no fruit. So don't just be like, well, I got to talk about it. I'm angry. I feel it right now. I need to talk about it. And when you start talking about it, the other person can't be present. And then you're mad because they're not present, but you didn't assess whether or not they had the time. You didn't assess whether or not they had the space in their mind to be able to communicate. And, I joke around and tell wives, like, I mean, don't say, hey, we need to talk when he's in the middle of a football game. Like, just don't do that. Or husbands, don't go to the wife and say, well, we need to talk right now, as she's trying to pack the kids' lunch and get them out the door. So part of communication within marriage is about using wisdom in terms of timing when you need to talk about a particular thing. And then on the other hand, you don't want to be that person who is married but acts like they're there by themselves in their marriage. So it's like, oh, I'll figure it out. I'm a loner. I've always thought things through. That's not fair. When you get married, married, you are bringing someone into your life, and your decisions need to include that person in your life. If there has been a conflict or there has been an issue that is impacting the whole household, it might be something that happened at work, but then you come home and you are angry, or you come home and you are frustrated, and your spouse is like, hey, I want to talk about this. What's going on? You can't be like, oh man, no, I don't want to talk about it. It's something at work. No, 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 no. When you said I do, it meant that you were inviting them into your space. And that means into your mind. It means into your emotions. And that's why I always say marriage is for grown folks. Marriage is not for young, not young people, not even young, because we have a lot of people that are old that get married, but they're young in their emotions. They're young in their maturity, and they go into that marriage and they have a hard time inviting the person into that space. You're no longer your own. You are too. Even when it comes to your body, we'll talk about sex in a little bit, but you are no longer your own. So it can't be, well, I'm going to figure it out. No, 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 no. You have to make sure that if it's impacting the house, impacting your marriage, that you find out a way that you figure it out. Now, some simple tips on communication. And communication is a whole course that we do. I have a course on my website called the Marriage Boot Camp, and I probably another marriage one. But communication, you have to make room for it. So there's nothing wrong with organizing a time to talk. For the person that needs time to think through things, saying, hey, I'll be able to talk in 24 hours. I'll be able to talk in 48 hours. You need to make sure, and I always say this to couples, marriage is a living organism, and it grows in the way that you sow into it. And so if you want your communication to grow, you have to be intentional about not only communicating, but figuring out where you have miscommunications, where your communication styles are different. This is why premarital counseling is so important. I wrote my book, Journey to the Altar, because I realized when I was coaching couples and we were dealing with couples in pastoral care, that you didn't go through premarital counseling, because if you did, some of these things would have been established. And some of y'all went through premarital counseling, but it was 2 hours. Or you went through premarital counseling with someone who has no counseling background at all. And they're like, okay, God put you together and that's it. But you've got all these faulty ways of thinking, faulty ways of viewing the world, faulty ways of communicating, and it's impacting how you communicate with one another. So you want to work on that. With communication, you've got to understand that you guys are two totally different people, two totally different temperaments. Temperament is your wiring, how you were born, how you were created. And that's why it's important when you go through counseling, whether you're already married or pre-married, you go to someone who can help you guys understand your temperaments, understand how you handle stress, understand your emotions. Because you know, when you get married, it's like two different puzzle pieces coming together to make one. So my strengths, when you understand temperaments or your strengths, these are like strength-based tests and things like that anybody should be able to give. Your pastor should be able to give. That's why I told them to sign up for my life coaching mentoring class, because these don't require school. Like you could take a strength-based test online, but things like I am less detail-oriented and he's more detail-oriented. That's going to help you understand that just because he's taking a little bit more time doesn't mean that you need to go over there and start hurrying him up, because the truth is he needs to be detail-oriented because you're not. Right? If you understand that somebody is more of a quick decision maker and the other one takes a longer time to make decisions, then you can begin to celebrate the one that makes the decisions quicker, and you give them those type of decisions that need to be made. And then you understand, okay, my spouse may need more time to make decisions. So you've got to understand the way that you are as a puzzle piece and the way that you're not. And you could do this before you're married. You can figure out what is your temperament. You can figure out what are your strengths. You can figure out what do you bring to the table. This is not stuff that you wait till you're married and then you're trying to figure it out. And that's why a lot of people love the wedding, but they're not ready for marriage. They love the feelings and the emotions and sex, but they're not really ready because you haven't done the work. So we're talking about things that you got to prepare before and you got to work on during marriage. We're talking about communication. We're talking about learning yourself, learning your strengths, learning your weaknesses, learning why you respond to things the way that you you respond, learning how to connect with people. Someone suggested the symbiosis or symbiosis test. And you have, you know, you can go to therapists, you can go to people that are licensed that can give you different types of assessments to help you. And then there's stuff that's free that doesn't require licensing, that is online, that you could also take and you could advance in. So you want to understand those things. It is not the job of your spouse to understand you. This is the other thing that I saw when we started doing marriage coaching, counseling people at church, is that, or in ministry, is that they would say, well, my husband has been with me for a long time, so he should know that. Or my wife has been with me for a long time, so she should know that. No, it is not the responsibility of your husband or your wife to know what you need. And this is the other thing I always say. If you haven't communicated to me an issue, we don't have one. It is unfair to be married to someone and expect them to know everything that is going on in your head, everything that is wrong. Women have I love doing this. They'll be like, well, it was Valentine's Day and he didn't get me anything. I can't believe he didn't do that. One, did you guys communicate about your Valentine's Day plans? Two, does he know that your love language is even gifts? And I'm going to touch on love languages in a minute. Three, does he even know that you're stressed out or sad about this situation? So a lot of times we have a lot of, there you go, unspoken expectations. That is one of the biggest reasons why people struggle in marriage the first 3 years of their marriage. Research says that when people have issues that are huge in the first 3 years of their marriage, divorce is likely, and it might be 10 years, it might be 20 years. Now we know that we serve a living God, that he can change hearts and he can change mind and he can restore. But if you go into marriage as a fairy tale, you go into marriage thinking it's going to look like your mommy and daddy's marriage or not like their marriage, but you don't make preparation for success, you're not going to succeed. Marriage is the same. You succeed in it just the way that you do at school. You succeed in it just the way that you do in your business. It is a choice and it requires preparation, post and pre. That's why I tell marriage couples, you don't wait, married couples, to go to counseling when you have a problem. You go to counseling for maintenance. Marriage is like a car. The more you put oil in it, the more you service it, go on retreats, go on dates, spend time talking, the healthier your car is going to be. But if you're like, oh, we got married and we're good, right? And you don't service your car, both of you guys don't take time to put effort into it, sooner or later, it's going to start putting and it's going to start breaking down. So we want to work on our communication. We want to work on understanding ourselves. Now, if you're already married, it's not too late for you to do a thorough understanding of who you are, right? This is where you begin to say, God, who am I? And this is connected to the lack of sonship. When you are not clear about your identity, when you're not clear about your purpose, you're not clear about who God called you to be, getting married is not going to fix that. And it's going to cause issues even in your marriage in a number of ways. One, you're going to look to your spouse to define you. You're going to be looking to your spouse to be the one to give you languaging about who you are and where you're going and what you carry. So you have to be clear about that prior. It doesn't mean that you can get married and not get clear. If you're already married, you got to do the work. You got to figure out, okay, who does God say I am? What do I carry? What is my purpose? What is my identity? Because the truth is, and I say this all the time, the number one factor or thing that's going to impact whether or not you fulfill the fullness of your destiny is who you marry. And I understand that not everybody's going to get married, but for those who do get married, if you marry the right person, it's going to have a huge impact on who you become and where you go. If you marry the wrong person, it's going to deter and derail you. So then that leads me to this whole idea about, is there a one? Is there one right person? Is there one right soulmate for me? And really, for me, I my world came crashing down when I realized that it didn't make spiritual sense and it didn't make statistical sense. I love love. I love fairy tales, but this is what I believe about the one. I believe that the one becomes the one when you make them the one. I do believe that scripture is very clear about one requirement in scripture about marriage, about business, about ministry. It says, do not be unequally yoked. Now, being unequally yoked is a broad thing. We have my blog. We lost my blog when we created our new website, but we're putting it back up. But it's also in my book, Journey to the Altar. I wrote a blog on 22 ways to discern if you're equally yoked. Equally yoked is not that we just both go to church. It's not that, oh, both of us go, know Jesus. There's a depth to being equally yoked. Whether one is spirit filled and the other is going to impact your marriage. Whether one believes in some more type of worship than another is going to impact your marriage. Whether one wants to go to the nations and is called to it and the other is not, is going to impact your marriage. It doesn't mean that all of those things have to be equal. So if I'm called to Africa and my husband is not, yeah, that's going to be a problem, right? But if I know I'm called to Africa on a part-time basis and I'm just going to be going on short-term mission trips, that's not going to be a big issue in the marriage because he knows that it's only going to be part-time. So when you're talking about being equally yoked in a marriage, you want to assess, where are you spiritually? How do we view God? What is our theology of God? Do we see God as a master? Do we see God as someone who's just beating us over the head? Are we still struggling with the spirit of religion? Do you understand the freedom that comes from the cross? Because all of that impacts your thinking. And once again, it doesn't mean that everything has to be matchy, but both of you guys have to be teachable, especially the one who hasn't had the experience or the understanding, maybe in the fivefold, maybe in the gifts of the Spirit, as you have had. If they're willing to grow and they're willing to learn, you're good to go. Now, if you're already married and maybe you got married and both of you weren't saved, and now you're experiencing all these things in God and you're beginning to see the realms of who God is and your spouse is not, that doesn't mean you pick up and leave, because scripture tells us that the believing husband or wife can sanctify the unbelieving husband or wife. But the truth is, there is going to be moments of hardship in your marriage because you are serving two different masters. You are serving two different masters, and who we serve determines where we go. Who we serve determines where we go. And so if they're still in darkness and if they're still operating out of a world mindset and you're in light and you're operating out of a light mindset, there's going to be friction. But that doesn't mean you got to give it up. You got to keep praying, standing in the gap, and then serving your spouse in such a godly way that they actually want to be saved. You don't want to be so churched, but you're not like loving. You don't want to be so churched, but you don't clean your house. You don't want to be so churched, but you don't provide for your children or work, because that actually nullifies the gospel. You can't say that I'm a believer and I am in God, but you don't do the basic things that you need. Scripture talks about a man that does not take care of his family is like an infidel. Right? So there are these basic things that you got to make sure are lined up when you're talking about being equally yoked spiritually. Then you want to talk about your finances. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? If you're married, you should be doing this on a consistent basis. You should be revisiting your vision, not just around your finances, but around your family. You should be visiting your vision around the spiritual direction in which God is calling you to go in. What is God saying? Where are we going? And it's not just about the man having a vision, because a woman also needs to have a vision, because if you don't have a vision, you will never be able to birth the vision in a man. So I'll hear women saying all the time, I'll follow a man if he knows how to lead. Well, I hope you're leading your own life. I hope you're making your good decisions in your own life. I hope you make good, sound, emotional decisions about your friendships. So it's leadership in a marriage is co-leadership. Yes, ultimately, it's up to the head what we're going to do, because the Lord's going to deal with him if he chooses the wrong thing. But it's the woman's right and the woman's grace and anointing to be able to pray to the Lord and say, husband, this is what I sense. This is what I'm thinking. And the husband then goes back to the Lord and says, okay, God, what are you saying? Okay, we're going to go with what wife is saying, because she has wisdom in this area. She has grace in this area. Or the wife may say, you know what? I'm not even going to touch this because I'm not graced in it. Some some of us just need to know what to back our hands off of. Like, I trust my husband with our finances because he knows how to grow money. He's brilliant at it. Prior to him, I had it, but I could not keep it, right? And I prayed for a spouse who knew how to do it. So I'm not going to be fighting him over decisions concerning finances because he has been faithful in that area in growing our family. And then, of course, he knows I'm prophetic. I hear God in certain areas. So he will say, well, what is God saying? What are you discerning? It is a partnership. It is a partnership. But these things are very clear even before you get married. And I feel bad sometimes married people ask me questions. You know, my husband is not doing this. My wife is not doing this. And I'm like, I bet you if I look at your history, they weren't doing it before you got married. And this leads me to my other point. Don't marry people who you're hoping to change or hoping that they will change when they get married. You know, Maya Angelou said it best. When people show themselves to you, believe them. Like this, it's not magical. Like, I don't understand. It's not, he was always like that. She was always like that. Everybody told you they were like that. And now you're mad at God, but it was your decision. It was your decision. So what I tell couples when we're doing premarital counseling or when I used to coach couples is, look, if you're going to marry this person and they never change, how would you feel, honestly? If they're always short-tempered, how are you going to feel? If they're not the cleanest, how are you going to feel? If they're not good with money and they never change, how are you going to feel? Because how you feel in that moment is your answer. And guess what? God is never going to make you marry anyone the same way he's not going to make anybody love you. You could pray all the prayers. You could cry all the cries. You could email the prophets all day long and say, I had a dream. What is God saying to you? Because you know what? Ultimately, marriage is your choice because God has given us a free will. He has given us boundaries, right? Marry someone that you can raise the dead with, cleanse the leper, expand the kingdom of God. But outside of that, and I had started about the one and soulmates, outside of that, it's up to you. You've got to know what your core values are. You got to know what you want in a healthy relationship. And I'm not talking about Coca-Cola shape or 6'4" and brown skin. No, throw all that stuff out the window because it is deterring. It's distracting many of you guys. You need to look for godly values. Like, is he hardworking? Is he faithful? Is she kind? Can she pray? Is she forgiving? Is she patient? That's what you look for in a spouse. And if you say, okay, well, they love God, they're teachable, they're willing to repent when there's issues, then yes, they have accountability. Yes, right? So God gives you the right to choose your spouse. He can show you in dreams. He can visit you, but ultimately you have to choose them and they have to choose you because some of us are chasing after people who we've chosen and they have not chosen us. There is no miracle that is going to happen. I mean, you can go into witchcraft if you want. People will do it. They'll make potions. Not if you want. I don't want you to go into witchcraft, but people will do that to try to make someone love them. And you cannot. And God is not going to either. Even if you were supposed to be married, even if it was supposed to be a good fit, even if you were the best together, if one of the spouse doesn't choose the other, that's it. You know why? Because you're going to have to choose each other every single day. Marriage is about choosing one another every morning, choosing one another every season, choosing each other when it's really hard, choosing each other when it's really good, choosing each other when there's somebody at work who is, just telling you how amazing you are and they are so good looking, choosing your spouse. So God wants you to choose from the beginning because you're going to be choosing for the rest of your life. You're going to be choosing to forgive. You're going to be choosing to love. You're going to be choosing them over the next pretty little thing that is trying to talk to you. It is a choice. And that's why we say marriage is for grown folks. It is not for immature people who haven't developed confidence in their identity. And as soon as someone else comments on their body or how smart they are or how cute they are, they're falling into sin. They're cheating on their wife. Right? There's somebody, speaker now going on about how he was so wounded before he got married. And now he's married. He keeps hurting his wife because he's so wounded. Well, it was your responsibility to get healed. It's not even your wife's or your husband's. They can help. They can help. And singles will always ask me this. So do you mean that I'm not married because I'm not whole? No, because we see people that are not whole get married all the time. People get married all the time for all kinds of reasons. So that's not one of the reasons why you're single. But if you know that it helps to be whole before you get married, why not work on it? Because when you get married, guess what? Other things are going to come up. There are other things that you're going to have to work on. And that's what married people need to understand as well, that this is a journey of evolving. And so one of the things that I've seen over the last 15 years of coaching couples is that when you get married and you don't evolve together with your spouse, you're going to go in different directions. If you're not under learning what they're interested in that season, or what drives them in that season, you're going to slowly begin to go apart. Because once again, marriage is hard work. Marriage is intentional. Marriage is about paying attention. One of my favorite quotes about marriage is that it says that every spouse should be the best student of their spouse. Your job is to study them. Your job is to understand them, their emotions, what is changing, what is shifting. You should be the most learned of your spouse. And that's why marriage is for grown folks. It's not for babies. It's not for people who just don't want to be lonely anymore. It's not for people who had a void because they have a mother wound or a father wound and now they're looking for it. That's why I say sign up for our mentoring program. Like, deal with all that stuff before. Deal with your mother wounds. Deal with your sonship issues. So that when you get married, you're just working with whatever needs to be worked through in marriage and not all the other stuff. Now, if you're already married, it's never too late to actually still deal with it, because the Lord is good. The Lord remembers us. The Lord works with us. And so I would encourage you to continue to work on those issues even when you're married. All right. So let's see. Let me take some questions because I know y'all got them. Instead of me just ranting, I'll let me take some questions in a second. I want you to put hashtag Q in the question. I'm taking questions on marriage, on all of those other things together. So tonight, I have a webinar. It's $7 on how to understand the kingdom of God, the glory of God, and how dreams and visions work in that. So the description is in the somewhere there or in my links in my bio. I would love for you guys to join us for that. We are still preparing for Pioneers Conference. Part of the VIP session is going to be talking about marriage preparation, marriage success. And yes, my husband's going to be with me on that panel. So if you want to go deeper in this type of teaching, would love for you to sign up for Pioneers Conference. It is virtual, so you can watch it from home and wherever you are. Someone asked how you sign up for DTA. I've put it in the description, as well as our Dreamers and Seers Club. You could also check it out on my Instagram in the links. All right, let's take some questions here. What do people mean when they be in position? What does that mean? I don't understand your question, but when we say position ourselves for marriage, that means do what you need to do so that if marriage showed up, you are ready to succeed. Position yourself for success. That means do whatever you need to do in your business so that when an opportunity comes up, you are ready to succeed as well. So please put hashtag Q at the beginning if you have a question. Shouldn't you be physically attracted to your mate though? Yeah, but that doesn't come first. If that comes first, you are in trouble. Like, there's nothing wrong with you finding someone like, whoo, they're good looking. And then you start talking and man, they love God. Man, we have the same vision. Man, we're both driven. Man, we want to see God be glorified in this area and that area. Wonderful. That's fine. But a lot of times in the kingdom, what we want is not what we need. Because we make decisions based on what is seen, and the spirit realm moves based off of what is unseen. So no, God will not give you a mate that you're not attracted to, but you may not be attracted to them in the first place. And that's why some of you guys have missed your spouses, because you were so focused on how they looked and how it felt, being around them, that you didn't take the time to get to know them. You didn't get the time to dig for treasures. Because the truth is, the more you get to know someone, the more you realize how smart, how kind, how loving they are, the more attracted you become to them. So physical attraction should not be the first thing. For some people, it may have been, and that is wonderful. But for others, you want to look for the Spirit of God. You want to look for peace. You want to look for joy. You want to look for righteousness. And then as you go into it, a lot of times those things come up. You can ask happily married people. 90% of them will say they didn't marry their type. This person was not their type, but they married somebody who they realized they needed and not just what they wanted. Will the webinar be recorded? Yes, it will only be sent out to the people who register. So like I said, it's a $7 registration for my time, but it's an hour webinar. And if you register, we'll email it out to you. And you can check the links in the bio or in the description. What if, let's see. What do you do? How do you deal with soul ties before marriage? Well, you join our 21-day fast. Tomorrow, we're going to start praying for singles, and we hit that thing like there's no tomorrow. You come out of agreement with them. You lose phone numbers. You move cities if you have to. You go through deliverance. You go through inner healing. You do everything that you need to do in order to make sure that thing is severed. You submit your mind and your spirit to the Lord. And that's something we cover as well in DTA, our mentoring program, how to break soul ties. And soul ties are not just romantic. They could be toxic religious soul ties. They could be friendships that are toxic. You know, they come in all kinds of ways. All right, let's see. Are people called to be single? Yes, there is a gift of abstinence. Is it celibacy? Abstinence. Abstinence is just to withdraw from sex. Celibacy, to be celibate, to not get married. And there are some people who have no desire for it. They just don't long for it. They don't think about it. And it's a gift from the Lord. And they're just never meant to be married. But I always tell people, most of the times, if you're thinking about marriage, you have had dreams about it, you are meant to be married. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get married. And a lot of times, a lot of things that we need to do, guys, is get out of our worldview. Like some of us are like, I'm only marrying someone whose skin is the same as mine. I'm only marrying someone who's an American. And the world is full of men and women. So you've got to be open to what the Lord has. I feel like a lot of people are restricted by their culture, and they're waiting and they're waiting and they're waiting. And you know, they never meet up with someone that could be a good fit. If I pay for on-site for the Pioneers Conference and I'm unable to attend in person, will I have access to watch virtually? Yes. Yeah. The registration for Pioneers Conference is both virtually and on-site. Now, on-site, I think we're closed. Like if you wanted to be there on-site, I don't know if you can still get into the room. You can try and go register, but everything else is virtually from now. Now, if you registered before, you still have the option to choose. Do you believe God has a soulmate just for us or gives us choices? I went on a rant about this on this very video. He gives us choices. He gives us boundaries. He tells us what is good for us. He gives us clarity into our destiny so that we can match properly, but he gives us choices. Because the truth is there are people who were married for 30 years and it was beautiful, and as the spouse died, and then God brings them somebody else and they're married for another 20 years and it's also beautiful. Does that mean that one was their, soulmate and the other wasn't? No, it's about choice. It's about working together. It's about lining with the heart and vision of God. What we want is not what we need. That's the truth. How do you deal? Okay. What does it look like for a man to pursue a woman? Once again, pick up my book, Journey to the Altar. I talk all about that. But for a man to pursue a woman is just to be intentional about what he wants. And I tell women this all the time. A man knows within 3 weeks whether or not you could be their wife or not. They know. You can ask any man. But the truth, whether they pursue you, whether they make that decision, is connected to a lot of stuff. But most men, when they have found something, and my husband says this all the time, he wasn't looking to get married. He was getting ready to go do his master's degree. But he says, when you find a diamond, you don't just walk over it. And so when a man finds someone, they know that this could be their wife, they're going to pursue, they're going to call, they're going to want to be around you. They're going to want to take you out. Now, the problem that I have is some of you women, because some of us are so hurt, or we think that we're so whatever, that we play all these games and the man gets tired. We play all these games because we weren't emotionally mature or ready. And this person is pursuing you and you make every excuse and you sabotage every single thing and they get tired. And then you're like, I don't know why I'm single for all these years. Well, you probably had 2 or 3 people pursue you, but you weren't mature. And that's why capacity is important. That's why healing is important, so that you can be a cognizant of when God has answered your prayers. When we're immature, when we don't understand things from the spirit realm, oftentimes we'll miss the answers to our prayers. So those are some of the ways that a man pursues, but they usually just make it very clear that, hey, my husband in 3 days was like, you're going to be my wife. 7 days later, we started courting. We've been courting ever since, right? And my friends have all these stories, so it's not just my story. They know and they pursue and they're wired for it, unless they have some kind of inner healing issues or damage. And I wouldn't want to date them right away either. They may need to work through some stuff, confidence, work through rejection, work through their mother wounds, and then they'll grow that confidence to be able to do that. I love being single and having my alone time with God, but God has shown me I'll have a husband. How can I know not to be afraid to be married? Get prepared. Most people are afraid because they don't have the right information. So like I said, I have some courses on AskDrFaith.com. I have books. Other people teach on this stuff. Join us on our 21-day fast. You're only afraid because you don't have the right information. With the Pioneers Conference, will it be in person or only virtual? It is both. So we have some people who already signed up that qualified to be on site, because we had a limited number of on site. And then the rest of you guys can attend virtually if you didn't sign up yet. So go in there and see. Let's see. You must be fair. Okay. What do you do if your spouse has lost their spark for the Lord? Pray for them, encourage them, and love them right there in the moment, because something else may be going on emotionally that they need courage in, or they need support in, they need encouragement in. If a guy's just texting every morning, good morning, beautiful, and maybe on occasion ask through a text, how was my day? And that's it. Is this a waste of time? Ask him. Say, are you wasting my time? What is this? Are we going anywhere? Do you want to date me? Do you want to court me? Why can't women, you have a choice, you know. You don't have to be pulled along with the guy for months and months and months. You waste your time because you wanted to waste your time. So if someone is doing all this stuff, hey, I noticed you call me beautiful. Are you interested in me? Are you interested in us taking this further? And if they don't like that, then they're probably not for you, because the real man will say, man, you got me. I was just nervous about when I was going to step up my game, but you are actually putting on the pressure for me to do it. So you waste your time because you wanted your time to be wasted. I told the Lord that I did not want to engage in talking to people for more than 3 weeks without knowing whether they were my husband or not. I said, God, I don't have any time to waste. There had been some guys in the past. I didn't date that many people, but I don't want to waste any time. And within 3 weeks, the Lord would always show me if somebody was a potential mate for me or not. He would reveal their character. He would show that they're not that interested. They would say stuff like, I'm intimidated by you. I was like, oh no, this ain't gonna work. Right? So you have the right to ask, the same way you have the right to say no, the same way you have the right to position yourself. Women, there are ways that you can show a guy that you're interested without you saying, hey, you want to go out. You could spend time around them. You could reach out to them in a chat box and say, man, I love the way that you love the Lord. You can position yourself to say that you're interested without the one having to be the one to pursue. So it's not just the man's job, but it's also your responsibility to decide what you want. What are your thoughts on dating a man that is a believer but doesn't have a church home? If he wants to have a church home, then there's no problem. If he's like, I don't do church, I don't do people, I don't like church, then that is a problem. But if he's like, I'm just looking for a church home, I haven't found one yet, that, you know, you guys can work on that together. All right. 3 weeks. Wow. Yep. So, you know, guys, God can tell you when someone's your spouse, when you should move, when you should get a job. It's the same way he talks. And that's why one of the things that I teach is you need to learn God's voice. Learn God's voice so that you can know how to make decisions, whether it's about marriage, whether it's about work, whether it's about where to move, who to be around, because he will tell you. He is your father. He is a good father. He's not happy about you roaming around in the dark. The same way he will tell you no, he will also tell you yes. All right. Is the on-site over? I really need to be on-site. Go and register. We've been talking about enlarging the on-site opportunity. We had closed it on Sunday, but we're looking to see if we need to move to a bigger venue so we could have more people on-site. So our team will email you and say, do you want to be on-site or virtual? And you can let them, but you got to hurry up. And early registration is closing in 15 days for the Pioneers Conference. So you don't want to also pay when the price increase comes up for that. Same thing with the VIP. It is on-site as well as virtual. I don't know if we've hit the on-site requirement as well, but I would go and register today. We absolutely have a choice. Yes. Do you think it's wise for you to pray and do Bible study together during the courtship, or will this open a relationship to unnecessary demonic attacks? Let me talk about courtship. This is my view of how kingdom people should meet, right? If somebody reaches out to you in the DM, say, hey, okay, talk on the DM, text back and forth. What are you into? Tell me about your life. Do that for a couple of weeks. If they call you on the phone, talk on the phone. Do that for a couple of weeks. I call that the gathering information stage. When you're gathering information, you guys call it talking. It shouldn't be 6 months. It shouldn't even be 3 months. If you're talking on a consistent basis every single day, then gather the information. Are we going in the same direction? Are we passionate about the same things? Are there areas where I am weak and they are strong? Like, learn them, ask questions. Once you have done that, then you guys need to pray about, should we be in a relationship? That's when you bring in other people. We've been talking to this person for several months or 2 months, and I want to know, what is God saying? Pastors, what is your feeling on this? Friends, what are you sensing, right? Get people that are prophetic around you so you don't make decisions about who you marry on your own. Once you have done that and you guys are in a relationship, that relationship really for believers should be, we believe that God has brought us together and we're entering into a courtship. Relationships in the world just say, we're going to see how this works out. We're going to see how this goes. But in the kingdom, we have gathered information. We're asking people to pray. We're also seeking the Lord. We have peace. There's a level of righteousness. There's a level of joy. We're going to continue this for the next 6 months or the next 9 months as the courtship. When we say courtship, we mean that we're doing this because we want to get married. We're doing this with the intention of marriage. Can a courtship break up? Yes. Can an engagement break up? Yes. But the intention is to not break up. The intention is to build so that it leads to marriage. Because the reason there's so much disappointment and so much brokenness is that we date without expectation. We date without an end. So we've been together for 2 years. I don't know when he's going to propose. Well, you need to know when you're going to propose, because those are things that you need to be talking about, because you guys should be planning your life together about where you're going. This stuff shouldn't be done in the dark, right? So what happens when you have overstayed in a season? Frustration is birthed. If you have dated or courted too long and no one is talking about getting married, you guys are going to start fighting. There's going to be issues that are coming up because it's telling you that season is ending. That season is over. Same thing if you have been engaged. I don't think people should be engaged more than 6 months, a year at the most, right? And I have lots of reasons about that. But if you've been engaged for 2, 3, you're going to get frustrated. Not only that, you're going to begin to sin. You're going to be having sex. You're going to bring in all kinds of stuff into your life. And there's going to be frustration in that. It's the same thing even when you're married. If there's not been any forward progression, that's why you guys need to have goals. That's why you need to have vision parties where you say, this year we're going to do this, this, this. Okay, husband, this year you're going to do this, this, this. Wife, we're going to work on you doing this, this, this. It allows you to be moving forward because we were wired to go from glory to glory. And so you got to make sure that you're clear about that. So when you're courting, it means that you guys are saying, this is my wife and this is my husband. And we're just getting to know each other further because we're going to get married in 5 months. We're going to get married in 6 months or whatever that end time is. Praying together is fine at that point. Reading the word together is fine at that point, but it will open you up spiritually and it will cause a soul tie. That's why you shouldn't do those things unless you're sure that you guys are going to get married and you have a plan of when that is going to happen. So that's my long answer for that question. I'll take like 5 more and then we'll go from there. If a guy has a woman burn out married, should you talk to them because they're not married? I'm not sure what that means. I don't know what burnout marriage means. Okay, I ran for so long. I'm trying to find my way and listen. I'm grateful for you allowing God to use you. Amen. Can someone prophesy to you about your husband and who he is? Yeah, people can. But I got maybe like 40 prophecies about my husband and maybe 10 of them were right. Right? So people can prophesy off the air. They can prophesy off the atmosphere. Heck, I had dreams that were all off because I was dreaming from an emotional realm and not from the voice of God. Right? So people can prophesy and I'll do it sometimes when I'm really, really sure. About someone's mate, but they shouldn't be young in the prophetic. One of the things we teach young prophetic gifts is don't prophesy mates, dates, and babies, because if you're wrong, that will really impact that person. It has to deal with someone's soul. So you don't frivolously talk about you're going to marry this person and you're going to have a baby on this date, because it could be very painful. How do you know you're fully whole and healed and ready to date? You don't have any unforgiveness. You love people well. You know your identity. There's no, you are teachable. You are forgiving. You don't hold offense. It just depends on what you were hurt from. That's going to help you to know what you are healed from. So I'd encourage for you guys to get on the DTA wait list because we cover all this stuff in detail. Someone please help me feed my kids. Okay. Bless you. So basically I hear you saying, get over the fear of having the conversation and potentially not hearing what you want. Yeah, nobody likes to be rejected, but I'd rather be rejected than waste my time. I would rather you tell me I'm not it than me be with you for 6 months and we're wasting time here, because that time could be dedicated to somebody who really is it. All right. Let's see. How should we position ourselves to be found in the pandemic while wearing masks? I've tried online dating, but I don't think it's for me. So online dating is fine. I don't have an issue for it. Against it. I believe that the Lord can connect people anyway. Then you pray. Then you join community groups online. Then you join small groups that are happening outside. You make sure that you go out. But the truth is, the biggest way to position yourself to be found is to be found in God. The biggest way to position yourself to be found is to be found in God. That means bury yourself in the things of God, in the plans of God, and what God is calling you to do. Because there's no way that I could have been found without the intervention of God. The way my husband found me was supernatural. Like, I was supposed to be in Israel. He was in Africa. It was like a divine link. So there was nothing that we could have done with our own strength. But what I was doing in that season was pursuing God and walking in purpose and loving people. And that's what I would do. But also get out and do the other things and see how the Lord connect you. All right. Where would you recommend a couple start when they need to rebuild their marriage? You can start with expectations. What are your expectations of a wife? What are your expectations of a husband? Have we met these expectations? How do I work on meeting these expectations? If there's been mistrust or betrayal and things like that, I would also go to get some counsel. But I would start working on expectations. Then I would start working on redating each other, getting to know each other, and so on and so forth. If the Holy Spirit has said someone is your spouse, should you look for someone to confirm that word? I would. I would never marry someone just because I thought I should marry them. Every prophecy should have a witness or 2 or 3 people. Let's see. I saw a man in my dream, but he had a loud, awful smell. Is that sin? It's probably some kind of deliverance issue. How do you feel about people dating with 2 different religious beliefs, Christian and Jehovah's Witness? You're not equally yoked. I wouldn't do it. Can a divorced person remarry when the former partner is still alive? I believe so. I believe that there are reasons why people divorce. I don't believe in divorcing because our personalities don't gel. But if there's been adultery, if there's been abuse, neglect, I believe that God honors those as well. I know that there are some who are like, you can't remarry because your wife is still alive. But I don't have time to go a lot into that theologically, but I believe it's okay. Will God bring someone you've rejected in the past back around for this reason? Maybe, or they may find somebody else who didn't reject them and move on with their life. How soon should a couple who is committed relationship start having conversation about finances, sex, if marriage is the goal? They shouldn't talk about sex at all, because that's going to open up a whole door. Now, you could talk about your past in terms of where you were hurt, places where you were molested and things like that. But don't be talking about like, this is what I like and I want you to do this, right? You could talk about your past and where you've come from. Finances, definitely. As soon as for us, when people go through our premarital counseling, and I'm going to get this online one day, I'm working on it. We're transcribing. We're going to put our marriage counseling stuff, coaching stuff to just help you spiritually prepare on it. But you want to talk about finances as early as soon as possible, because that's a huge issue of why people get divorced. So you want to make sure that you do that. Should marriage counseling be with a pastor or secular counseling? Okay. Well, if your pastor has understanding of marriage and counseling and all of that, fine. If they don't and they just love Jesus, still get counseling from them from a spiritual perspective, but then go to someone who's licensed that can help you guys, especially if you know that there's been a lot of stuff that has gone on. What can you do when waiting and hope for your spouse and to understand the importance of casting vision. You have a vision for your own life. Know where you want to be in 5 years, where you want to be in 10 years, and begin to work that vision so that when they find you, you're actually building something as well. What do you do when your spouse is emotionally mature and gets upset easily and won't speak to you for over a week? Well, I'm sure they were like that before you got married, right? So you could pray. You have to be patient with them. You have to figure out what their triggers are and why they do that. You could go to a counselor and work with someone to help you figure out what's going on and how you can help the situation. Such a demand for effective premarital counseling. Yep. How soon after dating is it okay to talk about marriage? Well, dating shouldn't just be dating. You guys can gather information 2, 3, 4 months, however long you want to do it. But once you say we believe that we're supposed to be married, then that's where the courtship / dating starts. So it depends on your life. Some people knew after 9 days, they got married in 30 days. They've been married for 25 years. Every story is different. That's why you got to know God's voice for your life. How do you effectively study the Bible? Start in the book of John. You can also get a study Bible, Thomas Nelson study Bible, and that kind of helps break things down. And there's also like just basic, simple study tools that you can get online. I won't be doing any online counseling or one-on-one coaching. I don't have time for it. But I will create some products that you can purchase and walk you and your spouse or you and the person that you're dating through together through coaching, spiritual development. But I don't do any one-on-ones unless it's leadership or business development. I just don't have time. What if you're from a different denomination? Is it workable? It is. You just got to have an understanding of what that looks like. Is it possible to be mentored by you individually? No, unless you join our church, right? And those people, they're able to sign up for a session with us if they need it. But I just do group mentoring. I reserve that for my spiritual children and those that are part of our church. What if, let's see. What do you do when your husband looks at other women and you know he's doing that? You ask him about it. You say, babe, let me know if I'm wrong. But I've noticed that when women walk by, you look at them. Is it just me or, what's going on here? And you got to talk about it. If you're in ministry, but a guy that approached you is not, should you talk to them or not? Talk to them. You don't marry people for ministry. Someone may be in ministry and their spouse may be a bus driver. Someone may be in ministry and their spouse may be a teacher. You both don't have to be in ministry. You both just have to love God. How do you know when someone is your spouse? Pick up my book. I don't have time to go over that today, but maybe I'll teach on it on another live. This is truly a blessing. Thank you, Dr. Faith. You've helped me understand breaking mother wounds. Continued blessings. Thank you so, so much. How can I sign up for the 21-day fast? Just go to the WMI Fast and Prayer group on Facebook. Thank you for all to do. Remember to post your Cash App for an offering. Oh, thank you so much, Tasha. My Cash App is so easy. It's just $, my first and last name. So Faith, welcome on. All right, guys, tonight, the free class on dreams, navigating the glory realm, angels. So this is a bonus class for my Dreamers and Seers Club, but they are willing to open it up to the public. And so that's why you're paying something. They're not, because they're already membership, but they've been wanting to learn like what it looks like to operate in the kingdom. So I decided to open that up. That's tonight. And make sure to register for Pioneers and get on the wait list for other things that we are doing as well. All right. Bless you guys. I look forward to talking to you. We'll be praying for singles, praying into marriages, future marriages for the next 3 days. We only have 6 more days of our 21-day fast. It's been crazy, phenomenal. Jump on if you haven't been getting up on those calls because it's been life-changing. All right. Bless you guys. Bye-bye. See you later.